All right, today we are diving into a really fascinating legal puzzle. It's a story about a court judgment for over $100,000 that is somehow, at the exact same time, completely worthless. So, how on earth is that even possible? Let's get into it.
So, just imagine for a second. A court rules in your favor, and you get a judgment for $119,000. I mean, that's a serious amount of money. For most people, that's a huge, life-changing legal victory. You think you've won, right?
Well, what if that win was just an illusion? What if this official's six-figure court award, signed and sealed, was actually totally, completely worthless? Like, you can't collect a single penny. It's as if the ink it was printed with just vanished into thin air. This is the big mystery we're unpacking today. How can a formal order from a court for so much money be fundamentally unenforceable? The answer, it turns out, is buried in a wild legal catch-22, a paradox right at the very heart of the case. Okay, so to really understand how this all went down, we first have to get our heads around a very specific legal tool. It's at the center of this whole story, and it's called an anti-SLAPP law.
So what the heck is it? Well, think of an anti-SLAPP law like a legal shield. It's specifically designed to protect your right to speak out. It shuts down lawsuits that aren't really about winning, but are just filed to bully or intimidate critics into silence. It's a really powerful defense for free speech.
But here's the thing. You can't just claim this protection whenever you feel like it. The law has some really critical requirements. You have to prove that what you did was a protected petitioning activity. And, this is the key part, that it all happened within a valid, lawful proceeding. Remember that. It's going to be super important.
And that specific requirement, well, that brings us right to the core of the problem, this fundamental legal catch-22. It all boils down to a court's most basic power.
And that power is called jurisdiction. It's basically the court's legal authority to even hear a case in the first place. Without jurisdiction, a court is pretty much powerless. It has no say over the people or the issues in front of it.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. In this case, the defendants had already told the court in a whole bunch of ways that it had absolutely no jurisdiction, no power over them. They were essentially arguing that the court had no business even hearing the case at all. You see the problem here? This creates a massive paradox. On one hand, the defendants are saying, hey court, you have zero power over me. But then, with their other hand, they're asking that very same court to use its power to protect them and give them money. You just can't have it both ways. This quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. You can't ask a court for protection while, in the same breath, claiming that court has no authority to act. That protection has to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is jurisdiction. So this single contradiction, it's not a small thing. It creates a domino effect that causes the entire legal argument for that $119,000 reward to just completely unravel. Let's just trace the logic here. It's like a chain reaction. If there's no jurisdiction, then there's no valid legal proceeding. And if there's no valid proceeding, then there's no protected activity for the law to shield. No protected activity means you can't use the anti-SLAPP law, and if you can't use the anti-SLAPP law, you get no fee award. See? The first domino falls, and it takes everything else down with it. And this isn't just a theory. There's actually a legal precedent for it called Flatley versus Morrow. That case basically established that illegal conduct can't be considered protected activity. And the argument here is pretty simple. Trying to act in a court that has no jurisdiction is, by its very nature, not a lawful activity, so it can't be protected. So all of this leads to the most serious and frankly shocking claim in the source material, one that goes way beyond a simple legal mistake. The argument here isn't just that the judge messed up or applied the law wrong. It's much deeper than that. The claim is that the basic conditions you need to even use the anti-SLAPP law were never there to begin with. It's like trying to start a car that has no engine. It was never going to work. And that brings us to the final explosive claim. The argument is that knowingly asking for this kind of protection based on a legal foundation that you know doesn't exist isn't just an error. It's a new and independent fraud upon the court. So, what's the big takeaway here? At the end of the day, it brings us right back to our original question. According to this argument, that $119,000 judgment is completely worthless because it's built on a legal impossibility. A house without a foundation can't stand, and a judgment without jurisdiction can't be enforced. And this whole thing leaves us with a really provocative final thought. This case isn't just about one weird judgment. It forces us to zoom out and ask a much bigger question about our whole legal process. When does a simple legal error stop being just a mistake and start becoming a deep, structural failure of the system itself.